Hi guys, myself Arya. As you all know, we are facing a pandemic situation right now. All the things are taking part virtually. So here we are going to take our seminar through video presentation. We are going to take morphology. As you all know, morphology is the branch of linguistics which deal with the structure of words. Along with we are taking compounding, inflection and affixation. Before that, let me introduce our team members. They are Anushwara, Nihala and Diana.
I am Anushra MS, a second year BA English literature student. I am here before you all to take a class on the topic morphology, that is, English morphology. The word morphology means morph is equal to form or shape and ology is equal to study of, that is, the study of internal structures of words. English morphology means the study of the pattern of word formation or the science to study the smallest grammatical units of language. Now, if you are studying English morphology, there are four very important terms that is unavoidable. That is compounding, affixation, inflection and derivation. A detailed class will be taken on this topic by my friends in the coming videos. So back to the definition of morphology. Morphology is between sound and word structure. Morphology is a complement to syntax word structure. So if morphology is the grammar of words, then what is syntax then? Let me say it. Syntax is the grammar of sentences. Totally confused, right? Let me explain about that. Actually, the tradition distinction between morphology and syntax is pretty clear. Morphology studies how words are inflected and new forms are created, while syntax studies how they are combined into phrases and sentences. Now, let us take some differences between morphology and syntax that will make clear your confusion. That is, morphology studies the structure of words. Syntax studies the structure of sentences. Morphology are the morphemes are the smallest units of study in morphology. Words are the smallest units of study in syntax. Morphology studies how words are formed. Syntax studies word order and the role of words within the sentence structure. Morphology looks at the words and their individual relation to what is being expressed with the sentence. Syntax looks at the components of words in a sentence and their relation to each other. I think now you are clear about morphology and syntax. Now, the main important thing, as everything has a smallest measuring unit, if in measurement, if it is the millimeter is the smallest unit, in morphology, English morphology, it is the morpheme. That's it. Morpheme is the very minimal unit of morphology. Now, let us see some observations about words and their structures. Number 1. Some words can be divided into parts which still have meaning. Number 2. Many words having meaning by themselves, but some words have meaning only when used with other words. Number 3. Some of the parts into which words can be divided can stand alone as words, but others cannot. Number 4. These word parts that can occur only in combination must be combined in the correct way. Number 5. Languages create new words systematically. The English morphology is the studying the words roots, affixes, suffixes, bases, inflections, and phonemes. The word morpheme is a combination of root word plus prefixes plus suffixes. Let me explain what is the root word. The root is the main part of the English word. It doesn't have any prefixes, suffixes, etc. Example, kind, mix, fix. Number 2, affixes are added to the root and change its meaning. Affixes are the prefixes that are placed in front of the root. Suffixes are placed at the end of the word and infixes are inserted in the middle of the word. Now, let us come back to the word morpheme, which is the very minimal unit of English morphology. Let us take a small example. That is the word ungratefulness. The word ungratefulness. Un plus great plus full plus ness equal to a morpheme. In this, un is the prefix, great is the root word, full is the suffix, ness is also the suffix. Like that, root word plus prefixes plus suffixes equal to a morpheme. Similarly, another example like telephones. In that, tele plus phone plus s equal to a morpheme. That is, tele is the prefix, phone is the root word, and s is a suffix. Morphemes are the minimal unit of meaning out of which meaningful units of words are composed in various ways. Now, just a detailed explanation. The meaningful parts in which words can be divided, example, boldest can be divided into bold plus est are called the morphemes of the language. These are considered the basic unit of meaning in a particular language. Words that have meaning by themselves, that is boy, food, door, are called the lexical morphemes. Those morphemes that function to specify the relationship between one lexical morpheme and another, like words like at, in, on, ed, s, are called grammatical morphemes. Those morphemes that stand alone as words are called free morphemes. Example, boy, food, in, on. The morphemes that occur only in combination are called bound morphemes. Example, ed, s, ing, etc. As we know, a morpheme can be defined as a minimal unit having more or less constant meaning and more of less constant form. For example, linguistics says that the word buyers is made up of three morphemes, by plus er plus s. The evidence for this is that can occur in other combinations. That is, the more combination a morpheme is found in, the more productive it is said to be. Note the terminology that braces indicate a morpheme, square brackets indicate a semantic characterization, italics indicate a lexical item. Number 1. Morphemes can vary in size. Neither the number of syllables nor the length a word can indicate what a morpheme is and what isn't. For example, albatross is a long word but single morphemes. Y, as in dreamy, is a single morpheme. Number 2, just as linguistics have had success dissecting phonemes into combination of distinctive features, so they have viewed morphemes as made up of combination of semantic features. For example, we can analyze a word like girls in terms both its morphological and its semantic structure. That is, morphological girl is equal to girl plus s, semantic girl is equal to adult male plus human plus s equal to plural. More on this when we get the topic of semantics. Number 3, two different morphemes may be pronounced and even sometimes spelled the same way. For example, the er in buyer means something like the one who, while the er in shorter means something like to a greater degree than. The first adjective er always attaches to a verb, while the second er always attaches to an adjective. It makes sense to consider these two different morphemes that just happen to sound the same. The first is called the agentive morpheme since it indicates the agent of an action. The second is the comparative morpheme since it indicates the comparative degree of an adjective. Fourth, we can't always hold the definition of a morpheme as having unchanging form. For example, when we consider words like boys, girls, shirts, books, we conclude that is the plural morpheme. But what about words such as men or women? Here, plurality is indicated not by adding s, but by changing the vowel into the stem. Yet, when still want to say the men is morphologically man plus plural, even though the form of plural is quite different in case. In the same way, it seems sensible to say went equal to go plus past, just as walked is equal to walk plus past. Even though the first case, past, involves a morphological change in the form quite different form from the usual adding of ed. Number 5, sometimes it is very difficult to identify morpheme boundaries. For example, the word hamburger originally mean hamburger equal to a city in Germany plus er. Hamburger originally meant is equal to a city in Germany plus er, that is equal to originating form. But probably most people now understand the word as meaning ham equal to ham plus burger equal to hot patty served on a round bun. That's it, guys. Now our morpheme is divided into two, that is lexical and grammatical, and this lexical is again divided into free and bound morpheme. Grammatical is also divided into free and bound morpheme, and further division is going on. Let me tell what is lexical and grammatical morphemes and free and bound morphemes also. Lexical morphemes are those that having meaning by themselves. More accurately, they have sense. Grammatical morphemes specify a relationship between other morphemes, but the distinction is not all that well defined. Noun, verbs, adjectives are typical lexical morphemes. Preposition, articles, conjunctions are grammatical morphemes. Free and bound morphemes. Free morphemes are those that can stand alone as words. They may be lexical morpheme like several press or grammatical morphemes like at and. Bound morphemes can occur only in combination. They are parts of a word. They may be lexical morphemes such as clude, as in include, exclude, preclude, or they may be grammatical such as plural, like plural as in boys, girls, etc. Okay, so that is morpheme. Now I think we got a clear idea of morpheme. Now what is morphs and allomorphs? A word can be analyzed as consisting of one morpheme or two or more morphemes, each morpheme usually expressing a distinct meaning. When a morpheme is represented by a segment, that segment is called a morph. If a morpheme can be represented by more than one morph, the morphs are called allomorphs of the same morpheme. The prefixes in insane, ill in ineligible, im in impossible, ir in irregular are allomorphs of the same negative morpheme. So that's it. Now I call upon Diana for further explanation of morphemes.
Hi everyone, I am Diana and today we are going on through the topic affixation. Before going through the topic, we have to learn what morphemes are. Do you know what morphemes are? Do you have any idea about it? I will tell you, don't worry. A morpheme is a short segment of language that meets three basic criteria. It's a word or a part of a word that has meaning. It cannot be divided into smaller meaningful segments without changing its meaning or leaving a meaningless remainder. It has relatively the same stable meaning in different verbal environments. Morphemes are mainly classified into two, free and bound morphemes. Free morphemes can stand along with a specific meaning. For example, eat, date, week, use, etc. But bound morphemes cannot stand along with meaning. Morphemes are comprised of two separate classes called bases and affixes. A base or root is a morpheme in a word that gives the word its principal meaning. An example of a free base morpheme is woman in the word womanly. Profit in the word profitable. Danger in the word endanger, etc. An example of a bound base morpheme is sent in the word descent, less in the word useless, dis in the word disadvantage, etc. Do you got it? I think you got it. Let's continue. Affixes. An affix is a bound morpheme that occurs before or after a base. Mainly there are three types of affixes. First one is prefix, and the second one is suffix, and the third one is infix. Prefix. A prefix occurs at the beginning of a word or stem. Example: sub in the word submit, un in the word unwilling, ill in the word illness, be in the word beloved, below, D in the word degrade, denomination, M in the word empower, N in the word encourage, Im in the word impossible, Re in the word react, reappear, etc. A suffix, an affix that comes after a base is called a suffix. Some examples of suffixes are ly in the word happily, loudly, clearly, in the word gardener, stronger, larger, in the word acting, showing, ness in the word kindness, less in the word friendless, useless, etc. And the third one is infix. Infixes are relatively rare in English, but you can find it in the plural forms of some words. Example: cupful, spoonful, passerby can be pluralized as cupsful, spoonsful, passersby using s as an infix. So we finished the classification of affixes. More than it, there are other classification. The affixes are classified into two: derivational affixes and inflectional affixes. Derivational affixes. An affix can be either derivational or inflectional. Derivational affixes serve to alter the meaning of a word by building on a base. In the example of words with prefixes and suffixes I gave before, the addition of the prefix "un" to healthy alters the meaning of healthy. It gives us a negative meaning, unhealthy. The resulting word means not healthy. The addition of the suffix "er" to garden changes the meaning of garden, which is a place where plants, flowers, etc. grow, to a word that refers to a person who tends a garden. That's a gardener. You got it? I will give another example. The suffix less in the word useless uses a negative meaning. It tells us that it's not for use. It cannot be used. Okay? Got it? That's it. And here the derivation affixes can be subdivided into two groups: class changing and class maintaining. Class changing derivational affixes change the word class to which they are added. Thus, the verb achieve and the suffix able create an adjective achievable. However, class maintaining derivational affixes do not change the word class but change only the meaning of the word. For example, the noun adult and the suffix hood create another noun adulthood. But now it is an abstract noun rather than a concrete noun. Class change in affixes when added to the stems immediately change the class of the words, making them alternately as a verb, a noun, an adverb, or an adjective. Therefore, derivational affixes determine or govern the word class of the stem. For instance, nouns may be derived from verbs or adjectives. Adjectives may be derived from verbs and nouns. Adverbs from either adjectives or nouns, and verbs may be derived from nouns or adjectives. English class change in derivations are mostly suffixes. Noun derivational affixes, which are also called nominalizers, are the following. The suffix meant to the word require gives requirement. Age to the word shrink gives shrinkage. L to the word betray gives betrayal. Asian to the word neutralize gives neutralization. These are the examples for class maintaining derivational affix. Class change in derivational affix. And the next one is inflectional affixes. There are a large number of derivational affixes in English. In contrast, there are only 8 inflectional affixes in English, and these are all suffixes. English has only 8 inflectional suffixes, which serve a variety of grammatical functions when added to specific types of words. These grammatical functions are shown to the right of each suffix. For example, big, bigger, biggest. Calls, called, calling. Here, in the first example, est are inflectional affixes, and in the second one, calls, called, calling. Here, s, et, ing are inflectional affixes. Fox, foxes, foxes are inflectional because they differentiate between singular, plural, and possessives. So that's all. I hope you understand it. Thank you.
Let us look after what is compounding. Compounding is a morphological operation that combines two free forms of words to give rise to a new word that has an entirely new meaning. For example, post and office, when combined together to form a new word, post office, which is an open compound word, as it is written as two words with a space in between. Now, there are different types of compound word: open compound, closed compound, and hyphenated compound. Open compounds are already we have told, and some of the example for open compounds are living room, high school, ice cream, real estate, full moon, etc. Now let us look after what are closed compounds. Closed compounds are the words which are formed without a space in between them. Example: doorknob, moonlight, sunflower, grandmother, basketball, etc. What are hyphenated compound? Hyphenated compounds have hyphen in between them. Example: long term, 21, merry-go-round, father-in-law, up to date, mother-in-law, over the counter, full time, part time, etc. are joined by a hyphen in between them. Now, compound words help in creating a new word as the need arises. The new words formed by compound words. Here are some common compound words formed by joining a noun and verb. Some examples are cloud plus burst, cloudburst, earth plus quake, earthquake, hand plus shake, handshake, blood plus shed, bloodshed, telephone plus call, telephone call. Now, another example, compound word that are formed using a noun plus gerund. As you all know, nouns are naming words and gerunds are ing form. Here, compound words are formed by joining these two. They are white plus washing, whitewashing, day plus dreaming, daydreaming, thought plus provoking, thought provoking, bird plus watching, bird watching, and test plus driving, test driving. Now, compound words using gerund plus noun. They are cooking plus gas, cooking gas, driving plus school, driving school, fishing plus net, fishing net, waiting plus room, waiting room. Compound word using a noun and another noun. Examples: time plus table, timetable, black plus board, blackboard, sun plus light, sunlight, crime plus novel, crime novel, cell plus phone, cell phone. Compound words using preposition and noun. Prepositions are in, noun is box, in box, over plus coat, overcoat, off plus spring, offspring, after plus noon, afternoon. I hope that the topic compounding is clear for you. Thank you for listening the voice.
Today I am taking the portion inflection. What's inflection? Inflection is the process of word formation. It means adding s, es, d, ed, nt, etc. to a base form of a word, and it is also used to making a new word. What's the base form of a word? The word that excluded s, es, t, ed, etc. are called a base form of a word. For example, the inflection s at the end of girls, toys, marks, etc. show that the nouns are plural. At the end of the word in a sentence like he dances, she eats, something like that, show that the subject in the third person are singular. The inflection ed is used to indicate the past tense. Thus dance become danced, work become worked, jump become jumped. In this manner, inflection are used to show grammatical categories such as tense, persons, and numbers. Inflection can also be used to indicate the part of speech to which the words belong to, for example, suffix er. Transform the verb dance to this noun from dancer. Likewise, make or transform into maker, sleep into sleeper, run into runner, etc. Then inflection est is used to a degree of comparison, like brides, closets, something like that.
So that's it, guys. I think now you got a clear idea about English morphology, including affixation, inflection, derivation and compounding. So at last, I would like to thank you on behalf of my all team members, that is Nihala, Diana, Arya and myself, Anashura MS. Thank you.